Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
High above the earth, where the sky stretches into a velvet hush, something gentle stirs in the cold. It does not roar or burn, it does not strike or scream, it whispers. And this whisper drifts in shades of green and violet, swirling in long, sleepy ribbons above the snow-covered lands. This is the aurora, not a fire, not a ghost, not magic, though it feels like all three. In the deep silence of the polar night it floats. The stars blink behind it, the moon waits beneath it, and the earth listens. Long ago, before satellites watched the skies and scientists wrote in careful books, people looked up from the frost-covered earth and saw lights dancing where no lights should be. In the far north, above forests crusted with ice and fjords frozen still, the aurora was seen as a bridge or a serpent or a soul. Children huddled beneath thick woolen furs listened to stories of spirits riding the sky. Hunters stopped and stared as the lights moved above their heads, not knowing what they were, only that they felt something. Something stirring inside. But now we know a little more. The sun, though millions of miles away, is not silent either. It breathes. Its breath is made of plasma, a wild glowing wind that sails across the black emptiness of space. It carries particles, fast and free, like sparks from a great fire. Most of these particles rush past the Earth as if the planet is a rock in a river. But sometimes they are caught. The Earth, wrapped in its invisible blanket of magnetism, pulls some of the particles close. This magnetic field, shaped like an enormous sleeping bubble, guides the solar wind toward the poles. And when those charged particles meet the sky, very high up where the air is thin and waiting, they touch atoms of oxygen and nitrogen. That's when the whisper begins. The atoms nudged by these sun-born particles start to glow. Not burn, not explode, just glow. Green is the most common color, coming from oxygen high in the sky, sometimes red, sometimes purple or blue when nitrogen joins the dance. It's a quiet conversation of energy, a meeting between space and sky. From the ground, this glow moves like liquid silk, folding and drifting. It curls, then stretches. Sometimes it pulses as though the sky has a heartbeat. Sometimes it hangs still, glowing faintly as if the night itself is thinking. No two auroras are the same. They are shaped by the winds above the planet and the strength of the solar breath. Some are quick, flickering like fireflies. Others last for hours, slow as glacier melt, washing the land in soft green light. In the polar night, where the sun disappears for weeks or months, the aurora becomes a kind of sun, a shy, elusive sun that visits in silence. There is no warmth in its light, but there is wonder. Even in the coldest places, people come outside, stand still, and look up. There are places in the world where the aurora is strongest, places where it writes its colors across the sky with bold strokes. Alaska, northern Canada, Siberia, Greenland, northern Norway and Finland. These are the lands that sleep beneath the aurora's light. Scientists call these bands the auroral ovals, circles of sky near the poles where the aurora is most likely to appear. They shift and widen with the sun's activity. During great solar storms, the ovals grow, and the aurora can be seen much farther south than usual, sometimes even where the snow has never touched the ground. But still, it is the polar night where it belongs most deeply. In that long darkness, when the days do not rise and the stars seem to hold their breath, the aurora paints its story. It tells of the sun, distant and burning. It tells of the earth, shielded and spinning. It tells of the invisible web that wraps around us all, magnetic and ancient. And beneath it, the world slows down. The snow muffles the forests. The animals move quietly, foxes with silver fur, reindeer stepping gently. The air grows colder, then colder still. But the light, this soft, shimmering light, keeps watch. It turns the frozen lakes into mirrors. It casts shadows that look like dreams. It hums without sound. You can almost feel it, this hush, this movement, this glowing breath of the sky. And if you stand there wrapped in layers, breathing the crisp air, your eyelashes glittering with frost, you might feel something more. Not fear, not confusion, but a quiet knowing that even in darkness there is color, that even in stillness the universe is moving. Some say the aurora is music made visible. Others say it's the Earth's nightlight. But maybe, just maybe, it's something else. A reminder that faraway forces can make beauty right above our heads, that the sky, like us, sometimes glows when touched. And as the lights move on, as they ripple across the wide dark, they leave no trail. No smell, no warmth, no sound. Only memory, only awe. Just a whisper in silence. Let's drift deeper now into the layers behind that glowing sky. Not upward, but inward into the Earth's quiet machinery, into the forces that shape this dance of color that arrives only when the world has grown dark. The aurora begins with light, but it is shaped by magnetism, a force both invisible and immense. The Earth, though solid and still beneath our feet, is wrapped in a magnetic field like a sleeping animal in a quiet current. This field is not fixed or frozen. It flows, it bends, it protects. Deep below the surface, beneath stone and silence, the Earth's molten core spins. Iron, heavy and hot, turns in slow, steady circles. And from this turning comes something unseen, a magnetic field that stretches out far beyond the clouds, reaching deep into space. It's called the magnetosphere. This protective shell deflects most of the solar wind, that storm of charged particles the sun sends rushing across space. But at the poles, those soft, still ends of the Earth, the field lines dip close to the surface. There the particles slip through. There they meet the upper layers of the atmosphere and begin to glow. It's a strange and quiet boundary, this meeting of wind and sky. Above the planet it is chaos. Particles race, bounce, spiral along magnetic lines. Some become trapped in belts of radiation, the Van Allen belts spinning like ghostly rings around the planet. Others dive downward toward the poles. And when they touch the atmosphere, they transfer energy. Tiny bursts of light ripple outward. A single collision, invisible to us, multiplied millions of times over, until the sky itself begins to shine. The science is quiet but astonishing. Oxygen glows green when excited around 100 kilometers up. At higher altitudes, it can blush red. Nitrogen makes purples and blues. Each color, each shape, a message from the atoms themselves. The waves and folds of the aurora are not random, either. They follow the curves of Earth's magnetic field. Like dancers moving along invisible paths, the lights stream from east to west, guided by forces that never sleep. In some places, the aurora forms a wide arc, stretching across the sky like a luminous doorway. In others, it crackles and pulses, brief curtains of color that blink in and out. When the solar wind is especially strong, the aurora bursts into movement, twisting and rolling like smoke in a dream. And yet this storm is silent. High above, the charged particles race. Below, on the snowy ground, not a sound is heard. You might imagine thunder or wind or a hiss like steam, but no, even in its wildest moments, the aurora does not speak aloud. Still, it stirs something inside us, perhaps because we know how far it's come. The light above your head began its journey at the surface of the sun, where massive loops of plasma arch and fall. From those eruptions, solar wind speeds toward Earth at over 1,000,000 miles an hour. What we see in the sky is not just color, it's connection. Between star and planet, between energy and air, between us and the vast unknown. Animals notice it too, though they do not name it. Reindeer graze beneath the glowing sky, their eyes adapted to the pale light. Arctic hares freeze in place, their coats blending with the snow. Owls blink in the hush. Wolves pause mid-step. The light changes everything, yet asks for nothing. For the indigenous peoples of the Arctic, the aurora is woven into memory. In Sami traditions, the lights were once thought to be the souls of the dead or the breath of the stars. In Inuit stories, they were spirits playing in the sky or messages from ancestors long gone. And still, the science does not erase the wonder, it deepens it. Because we now understand that these lights are shaped by solar cycles, by the rhythms of a star 93 million miles away. Every 11 years, the sun's magnetic field flips, north becomes south and south becomes north. During these times, the sun becomes more active, more sunspots, more solar flares, more auroras. The sky reflects the heartbeat of a star. And this heartbeat flows into us quietly. Those who live under the auroral skies often speak of the feeling, not just seeing, but feeling the presence of something vast, something unknowable. It's not fear nor even reverence. It's a kind of smallness, a kind of grace. The sense that the world is more than the ground we stand on. Even children feel it. They lift their faces to the night and whisper, "Look." Even babies blink wide-eyed at the glow, their breath frosting in the air. Even scientists, surrounded by instruments and equations, sometimes pause to look up and forget, for a moment, the numbers. Because the aurora is more than a result, it is a reminder. A reminder that our world is not sealed off, that Earth breathes with the sun, that sky and space and silence are stitched together with light, a reminder that beauty can be born from collision, that silence can hold movement, that the coldest places can be warmed by wonder. In the middle of the long polar night, the aurora remains, not instant but possible, like a hope, like a promise, that even when the sun has disappeared, its song remains, painted across the heavens, slow and shifting. And still, the light returns. Now imagine you are standing at the edge of the world. It is night, but not the kind of night that sleeps. This night stretches on, wrapped in a blue so deep it feels like velvet pressed against your skin. Around you, snow lies still, glittering under the whisper of a sky that moves. You breathe in. The air is sharp, but it does not bite. It fills your chest with quiet and makes everything seem slower. Above you, the aurora dances again. But this time it feels closer, not just above your head, but around you, inside you, as if the boundary between skin and sky has faded, as if you too are part of the light. It is here in this moment that the science fades to feeling. You are no longer thinking of solar winds or oxygen atoms or geomagnetic storms. You are not tracing the paths of particles. You are simply watching, breathing, being, letting the sky move and letting it move you. The aurora does something rare. It reminds us of our place in the universe, not as rulers of it, not as observers from afar, but as beings within it, touched by forces older than mountains, softer than snowfall, larger than anything we can see. It speaks if you listen gently. It says you are not alone. It says you are part of something vast and moving and alive. It says even the darkest nights can glow. This feeling, so quiet, so slow, is echoed in the lives of those who live beneath the auroral skies, in small villages nestled between snowy hills, in research stations where the wind howls for days, in tents wrapped in reindeer hide, in icy cabins beside frozen lakes. The aurora becomes a thread in the fabric of life. People learn to read it the way others read clouds or birds. They know when it's coming. They feel it in the stillness, in the pressure in the air. Children learn not to whistle at the lights lest they call them too close. Elders smile when the sky turns green. There are no alarms, no announcements, only knowing. And what a strange gift that is, to be familiar with something that comes from a star. In the quiet hours when even the wolves sleep, some lie beneath the windows and watch the glow shimmer. Curtains of light drift across the ceiling of the world. Outside, trees are outlined in silver. Rivers sleep under glass. Ice forms like lace. and still the aurora moves as if telling a story that no language can hold. It is not always grand. Sometimes it is a faint smudge on the horizon, a shy green breath there for a moment and gone the next, but even then it leaves something behind, a stillness, a softness, a reminder that the sky has layers we cannot touch but can feel all the same. There are scientists who chase it, flying high in planes, launching rockets through the glow, placing cameras in remote corners of the world. They study it with instruments and maps, draw its patterns, measure its energy. And through all of this, they discover something surprising. The aurora, though beautiful, is also useful. It tells us about the health of the sun. It helps us understand the magnetic field that protects us. It shows us how space weather can affect our world, interfering with satellites, radio signals, even power grids. The lights in the sky are not just decoration, they are messages, they are data, they are warnings and wonders wrapped in one. And yet, even knowing this, the mystery remains. Because science does not erase the feeling, it only deepens the awe. To know that what you are seeing is a particle from the sun touching a molecule in the sky, and still be moved to tears by its beauty, is not a contradiction, it is a gift. It means we can understand the world and still be amazed by it. It means that wonder and knowledge can share the same sky. So here you are beneath that sky. The aurora glows brighter now, rippling from one horizon to the next. The snow reflects it like a mirror. Your breath fogs the air, your heart slows, and all around you there is nothing but light and silence. You close your eyes, but the colors remain. You listen, and though the sky is quiet, something inside you answers. Perhaps this is why we return to the polar night, not just to witness the lights, but to be reminded that even in the longest darkness, the universe does not forget how to shine, that even in the farthest corners of the world, beauty finds a way to reach us, that even in the stillest moments, we are part of something that moves with grace. And when the aurora fades, as it always does, melting back into the stars, folding into the blackness like a secret, it leaves you with something soft and lasting. Not just a memory, but a glow. Not just light in the sky, but warmth in the heart. Because once you have stood beneath the aurora, once you have seen the sky whisper in green and violet silence, you RRY that light with yous. Wherever you go. Even when the night is long. Far above the ice-covered world, where breath turns to silver and the wind speaks in hushes, there are stars that never leave. They do not rise, they do not set, they wait still and glowing in the slow-turning sky. Through the long polar night, when the sun forgets to return, these stars remain, watching, whispering, burning from distances too wide to measure. They are called circumpolar stars. Unlike other stars, which rise in the east and fall away to the west, these never disappear beneath the horizon. They trace gentle circles in the sky, anchored around the North Star Polaris, a quiet sentinel that marks the axis of Earth's spin. No matter how long the darkness lasts, these stars remain, and to those who dwell beneath them, they become more than distant suns. They become companions. Imagine standing beneath a sky like this, in a place where night stretches for weeks, where the land is blue and white and soundless. You look up and there they are, Cassiopeia, shaped like a crooked W, always tipping and turning, never vanishing. Ursa Major, the great bear, lumbering through its endless loop. Draco, twisting like smoke between the others. These are not just shapes. They are patterns burned into the memory of those who depend on the sky to tell time, to tell direction, to tell stories. Because once, long before clocks and satellites, the stars were everything. To the people of the North, they were maps written in light. They showed the paths of animals, the shift of seasons, the right time to hunt, to sleep, to prepare. They held legends. They carried names, each one tied to a memory, a lesson, a whisper from those who came before. And still today, in the loneliest hours of the polar winter, these stars speak, not with words but with constancy. They say, I am still here. The world still turns. You are not lost. In the science of astronomy, these stars offer stability. Because they circle the pole, they are always visible above a certain latitude. Near the Arctic Circle and above, they become guardians of the sky. Polaris, nearly fixed in place, helps navigators find north. Other stars swing around it, graceful and slow, painting the hours in curves of light. What makes them never set? It is the shape of Earth's spin. Our planet tilts just a little and turns on an invisible line. From high northern latitudes, this tilt means that some stars never dip below the edge of the world. They circle endlessly, like lanterns hung on invisible wires. Their presence offers a strange kind of comfort. When everything else is hidden, when the sun has vanished, when the snow blurs the edges of the land, when even time seems to pause, these stars stay. They are not brighter than other stars. They do not flash or change color. They are not closer. And yet they feel more known, more real, as if their refusal to vanish is a message, quiet and enduring. Look, you are not alone. The Arctic night can feel endless. In some places, it lasts for more than 60 days. The sun does not rise, it only shifts beneath the horizon, casting a faint twilight before slipping away again. The shadows grow long, then longer still, until they become the sky itself. The snow no longer glitters. It glows faintly, reflecting the cold light of the stars above. And it is in this time that the circumpolar stars become most important. They mark the days without sunlight. They help scientists studying polar ice track the passage of time. They guide travelers across frozen seas and endless tundra. They soothe the eyes of those who cannot sleep, who wake to find the world unchanged, wrapped in stillness and silver. Some people say they can hear the stars in the north, not with ears but with the heart, a feeling, soft and slow, like the distant echo of light. Maybe it is the quiet that allows us to sense them more deeply. Maybe it is the way the cold sharpens everything, makes the stars feel closer. Or maybe it is simply that in the absence of the sun, we become more aware of what remains. And the stars remain. They do not flicker like candles. They do not shout. They shine gently and patiently as they have for millions of years. Some are giants, old and bloated, nearing the end of their long, burning lives. Others are young, still finding their place in the sky. But from Earth, they look the same, tiny points of perfect light. To lie beneath them is to feel something ancient, to understand in some quiet part of your bones that you are small but not forgotten, that you are moving though you feel still, that you are connected to sky, to time, to the great wheel of turning stars. Even now, in an age of machines and lights, satellites and sensors, the circumpolar stars still do their work. They spin, they guide, they keep watch, and they wait for us to look up. In the language of astronomy, they are fixed stars, but we know better. Nothing is truly still, not even Poe. Laurie's, it moves too, just so slowly that only centuries can see it. And even the patterns we know, those ancient constellations, will change one day. The stars are drifting, pulled by gravity, shaped by time. The sky we see now is not the sky of the distant past, and yet it feels timeless. Perhaps that is the gift of the polar night. It teaches us to see not only the stars, but the silence between them, the slow turning of the sky, the patient beauty of light that never sleeps. And if you wait long enough, watching through frost-covered windows or wrapped in fur beneath the open sky, you might see them trace their paths once more, not because you asked, not because you needed, but simply because they are there. They always have been. Let's drift even deeper now, into the quiet mysteries held by these stars that never sleep, into their movements, their stories, their slow unfurling across the night sky like glowing threads in an ancient tapestry. Though they seem fixed, though they seem eternal, these stars carry within them the silent breath of time. Polaris, the North Star, has not always been our pole star. Thousands of years ago, another star held that place, Thuban, in the constellation Draco. And thousands of years from now, Polaris will drift away from its position, and yet another star will take its place. This is because Earth's axis wobbles ever so slowly, like a spinning top that leans just slightly off its center. This slow movement, called precession, completes a full circle every 26,000 years. So when we look at Polaris and say it is fixed, we speak only in the language of now. In truth, everything moves, everything changes, but it does so in a way that feels eternal when measured by a single human life. And still, in the polar night, these stars are our slowest clocks. Each night they move a little around the pole, tracing invisible circles. By watching their paths, how far they've moved from one point to the next, you could tell the time even without a watch. Some Arctic explorers learn to sleep and wake according to the stars. Sailors mark their courses by their loops. Indigenous storytellers use their positions to explain when to begin the great seasonal journeys, following the caribou, storing the last berries, preparing for the spring thaw. But these stars are not only practical, they are deeply emotional too. Their constancy holds meaning in places where the world can feel unmoored. In the far north, where the sun disappears for weeks, where blizzards reshape the land daily, where silence stretches so wide it becomes a landscape of its own, the stars give shape to the formless. They say the sky is still here, the world is still turning. Imagine a child curled beneath a thick blanket, staring out through a window fogged by breath. The stars above are the same stars their ancestors saw, the same light unchanged, the same patterns drawn in dark ink across the sky. That child may not know the names of constellations, but something deep inside understands their meaning. There is a comfort in repetition, in circles, in knowing that something will return again and again. That is what the circumpolar stars offer. In the Sami tradition, the stars are more than distant lights, they are part of the land's soul. Their presence is felt in rituals, in songs, in quiet blessings whispered before sleep. Some constellations are seen as reindeer running across the sky. Others are hunters or protectors, watching over the village as it slumbers. And even now, as scientific understanding grows deeper, these old stories remain. Because truth does not only live in measurement, it also lives in metaphor, in the way a star can be both a ball of burning gas and a symbol of home. Astronomers studying the circumpolar stars have found more than beauty. They've found keys to the universe's age. By measuring the light of these stars, its color, its wobble, its subtle dimming, they uncover how stars are born, how they grow, how they fade. Some stars are so steady in their brightness that they've been used to measure vast distances across space. Others blink slowly, sending out pulses that tell of planets spinning nearby. These stars, patient as they seem, are full of secrets. Some are part of binary systems, locked in a silent dance with another star, orbiting each other over centuries. Some have planets cold and dark that may never know light like ours. Some are drifting toward us. Some are slipping away. Their lives are measured in millions, even billions of years, and yet to us they feel forever. It is this strange blend of motion and stillness, of change and permanence, that makes them feel sacred. They are not gods, they are not magic, but they are faithful in a way few things are. In a world where seasons are vanishing, where ice melts faster than it returns, where familiar landscapes change in a single generation, the stars offer a rare kind of grounding. No one owns them, no one can build over them or take them away. They belong to all of us and to none of us. They simply exist above the roofs, above the trees, above the storms, unbothered by what happens below. Even during solar storms, when auroras roar across the sky, the stars remain steady behind the curtain of light. Even when clouds cover the night, they wait beyond. Even when no one is watching, they trace their silent paths. And when the long night begins to end, when the first hint of dawn returns to the polar horizon, the stars do not vanish in protest. They fade gently, quietly, as if bowing before the sun's return. They know they will be back. Because the night always comes again, and with it, the stars. So those who live under their gaze learn to trust in their rhythm. the way they rise and fall without ever truly leaving, the way they carry time on their backs like invisible threads, the way they remind us without speaking that something ancient is still unfolding overhead. And in this, they give us more than light. They give us rhythm, they give us memory, they give us hope. Hope that even in a world of shifting seasons, something remains. Hope that in the great hush of winter, something is still awake. Hope that in the longest dark, the stars never sleep. Now let us return once more to that frozen landscape, where silence breathes and the sky turns slowly above a world painted in shadow. The stars that never sleep are still there, glowing gently through the crystal air, circling the pole with the patience of something beyond time. They do not rush, they do not change for us, and yet somehow they hold us. When we watch them night after night through the long Arctic dark, we become part of a rhythm older than memory. The slow turn of constellations across the sky, the steady loop of light around Polaris, the quiet grace of stars tracing their paths above the snow. All of it reminds us that time is not only kept by clocks or calendars, it is also kept by the stars. There is something deeply human about looking upward. For thousands of years, people have done it, not only to understand the sky, but to understand themselves. In myths and poems, in maps and songs, in fireside stories told beneath fur blankets, the stars have always been our mirrors. We've given them names, woven them into animals and heroes, and let them guide us when everything else was lost. Even now, with machines in orbit and telescopes peering into galaxies far beyond our own, the stars above the polar night still feel close, still sacred, still necessary. Because when you stand beneath them, truly still, truly listening, you feel something shift inside you, not loudly, not quickly, but deeply. You remember that the world is spinning beneath your feet, that you are riding the curve of a planet through space, that you are part of something moving even when you are still. And more than that, you remember that light can be patient. These stars have waited for you, through storms and centuries, through times when no one looked up, through days when the sky was too full of city light to be seen. Still they circled, still they turned, still they burned. The polar night can be a teacher of quiet things. It slows the world, it hushes the forests, it dims the noise of daytime and brings a kind of stillness that lets the stars speak more clearly. And what they say is not loud or urgent, it is soft, gentle, like a lullaby hummed over great distances. They say you are small but not forgotten. They say this moment is enough. They say even in darkness something shines. In many Arctic cultures, the stars are tied to the souls of those who came before. Ancestors live among them, watching, waiting, glowing. They are not far away, not when you can see them so clearly. Some traditions teach that when someone dies, they rise into the sky and become one of the lights above, circling the world forever. And when the children are born, they are reminded that star is part of you. That one watches over you. That one remembers your name. To know the stars this way is to feel less alone, to know them not only as suns and distances, but as memories, as songs, as promises kept across the cold. Even scientists, in their quiet observatories and winter camps, speak of awe when the sky opens. Even with their knowledge of parallax and fusion, they still feel the wonder of standing beneath a pattern that has held its shape for all of human time. Because the stars above the polar night do something no equation can explain. They make us feel not always joy or sadness or fear, but something deeper, something quieter, something like belonging. Belonging to a sky that does not forget us, belonging to a planet that keeps turning even when we sleep, belonging to a mystery we may never fully understand, but that welcomes us anyway. And when the sun returns, when the long dark begins to lift, when the snow begins to gleam beneath a pale horizon, the stars begin to fade. Not all at once, not quickly, but slowly, gently, like a curtain being drawn back. The circumpolar stars remain, but they soften. Their light is swallowed by the returning day. Their loops become harder to trace. But we do not forget them. We carry their paths inside us now. We remember the way they turned night after night through the coldest hours. We remember the quiet they brought, the stories they held, the stillness they offered. And we wait for their return. Because we know the darkness will come again, not as a punishment but as a season, as a rhythm, as a necessary breath in the long living song of the earth. And when it does, the stars will be there exactly where we left them, unmoved, unafraid, still circling, still watching, still not sleeping. And in that return there is peace. Because some things do not change. Some lights do not leave. Some stars never sleep. In the quiet north, where the world feels wrapped in white and the wind breathes like a sleeping creature, there is something ancient beneath your feet. Not rock, not snow, but ice layered, listening, alive in its own slow way. It stretches for miles, silent and waiting. And if you listen softly, with the kind of stillness the polar night teaches, you might begin to hear what it hears. Because ice listens. Not with ears, not like we do, but with tension, with memory, with fracture and echo and stillness. It feels the tug of the moon and the weight of the sky. It senses the slow curl of seasons and the sharp footfalls of distant creatures. It creaks and sighs even in its silence. Beneath that frozen surface, sound moves differently, slower, sharper, more lasting. A single crack can travel miles, echoing deep within the ice like a forgotten voice. And among all these voices, there is one that returns again and again, the pull of the moon. The moon so far above seems delicate from here, soft, distant, pale as bone, but its gravity is strong and it reaches across the sky to hold the earth's oceans in its gentle hand. Tides rise and fall under its gaze, waves swelling toward its light. But what many forget is that this pull touches more than water. It touches ice too. Especially sea ice, the frozen skin that forms atop the Arctic Ocean. This ice is not the still, ancient kind locked in glaciers or buried in mountains. It is younger, more restless. It forms and reforms each winter, expanding outward like a slow breath. It is born from the surface of the sea when salt water begins to freeze, casting out salt crystals and locking molecules into delicate patterns. At first it is thin like glass, then thicker still. Over days and weeks, it becomes a field of solid whiteness that stretches from one horizon to the next. But even when it appears still, this ice is moving. Because the moon is calling it. Her gravity tugs on the sea below, and the sea in turn nudges the ice above. The ice bends, it flexes, it cracks. In places where pressure builds, it breaks and stacks into jagged ridges, sharp as teeth. In places where tension eases, it thins and melts, forming pools that reflect the sky like mirrors. This movement is slow, almost invisible, but it is constant, and it is shaped by the rhythm of the moon. Scientists call this phenomenon tidal flexing, the way ice responds to the moon's pull by stretching, bending, and shifting. It happens on a scale so vast and quiet that only satellites and careful instruments can measure it, but it's real. The ice, like the sea, is dancing with the moon. And with every movement, it listens. Some nights the creaks are loud, sharp pops that echo like distant thunder. Other nights the ice only hums, a soft, low vibration that travels deep within its layers. Underneath, in the dark waters, whales sing through this world of shifting pressure and sound. Their calls bounce off the under-ice ceiling, carrying messages over miles. Narwhals, with their long ivory tusks, glide beneath the frozen surface, weaving between cracks and listening, always listening. The ice does not block sound, it carries it, it holds it, it remembers it. In Greenland, researchers have lowered microphones beneath the ice and discovered a world of sound no human ear had heard before. The moan of pressure ridges, the whistle of shifting currents, the long, slow groan of ice responding to the moon's call. These are not loud sounds. They do not startle. They do not demand. They simply exist, like breath, like wind, like the slow ticking of a clock made from frozen water. And as the moon rises higher, her pull deepens. The entire Arctic breathes in time with her. Ice sheets expand and contract. The ocean stirs beneath its frozen lid. Even the creatures that live here, from the smallest plankton to the tallest polar bear, are touched by her rhythm. Some researchers believe that the hunting patterns of seals are tied to the moon, as are the movements of fish and the feeding times of Arctic birds. It is a quiet choreography. And it all begins with the moon looking down. She does not shine with her own light, she reflects, and yet that reflected light is enough to change the world. On a full moon night in the Arctic, the snow glows so brightly that shadows stretch across the ice like ink. You can walk for miles by moonlight alone, hearing the crunch of snow, the soft stir of air, and the occasional groan from deep below. It is in this silver world that the ice listens most closely. Because the moon is not only pulling at its edges, she is speaking to its center. Every molecule of ice is caught in a balance, between pressure and cold, between silence and sound, between memory and motion. And in that balance, the moon becomes a partner, a guide, a whispering force that touches the earth without ever touching it. Even now, as the climate shifts and the sea ice shrinks, this relationship remains. The ice still hears her. Even when it breaks, even when it melts, even when the world forgets to listen, the ice remembers. And the moon continues her slow, silent pull. Let us drift deeper now into the slow language of frozen water, into the memory held in every shard of ice that has ever felt the moon's pull. Because ice does more than shift and sing, it remembers. It keeps stories sealed inside itself, locked in tiny bubbles of ancient air, pressed between layers that have thickened year by year, winter by winter, breath by breath. Glacial ice, different from sea ice, is a kind of archive. It forms slowly over centuries, each snowfall compacting into firn, then into crystal-clear ice that traps particles, gases, even fragments of pollen and distant ash. These layers become a timeline, a frozen diary, a pale record of the world's whispers. And when researchers drill deep into that ice, drawing long cylinders called ice cores, they are reading the memories the Earth forgot how to say out loud. Trapped inside are traces of volcanoes, soot from ancient fires, even echoes of vanished atmospheres. Carbon dioxide levels from thousands of years ago, methane from prehistoric marshes, tiny salt crystals from faraway oceans. It is all there, held without urgency, without judgment, simply preserved by cold and time. And within that story, the moon appears again, not in light but in rhythm. Because the cycles of the moon have always affected the climate of Earth in subtle but lasting ways. Lunar tides shape the ocean's currents, which in turn distribute warmth and cold across the globe. Tidal forces stir nutrients in the deep sea, feeding the base of food chains. And as ice melts and returns with the seasons, the moon's touch can be felt in the timing, the speed, the edges of those changes. In ancient times, people noticed. They built calendars by the moon, planted crops by her cycles, set rituals by her phases. And in the north, where the seasons are sharper, more exact, more demanding, the moon became a kind of clock. Even now, indigenous hunters still watch her. They know that ice is safest under certain moons, that animals travel differently depending on her face. A full moon might mean longer hunting at night, more light on the trail, more movement in the herds. A new moon might mean stillness, caution, deeper cold. To live on the ice is to know that nothing is ever completely still. Even in deep freeze, even when the world feels locked in white, change is always happening beneath the surface. The ice expands, contracts, splits. It forms leads narrow, open cracks where the ocean breathes. It creates polynyas, pockets of open water surrounded by ice, where life gathers even in the coldest months. And all of it happens under the slow gaze of the moon. In these places, the moon is more than beautiful. She is practical. Her rise and fall shape travel routes, influence tides that carry seals, guide the rhythms of whales. The Inuit once used her glow to find the edges of thin ice, watching the way her light shimmered across the surface, listening for subtle shifts beneath their feet. Dogs would pause at the edge of pressure ridges, ears pricked to sounds only they could hear. And above them, the moon would continue her silent watch, saying nothing, changing everything. Even scientists now speak of moon-ice coupling, the complex way in which lunar gravity interacts with sea ice movement, how it affects stress fractures, brine channels, even microbial life. Beneath the ice, entire ecosystems rise and fall with the moon's motion. Microscopic algae cling to the underside of ice sheets, photosynthesizing in narrow bands of light. These tiny beings feed krill, which feed fish, which feed seals, which feed polar bears. And so, with every lunar cycle, energy flows, life begins, ice shifts. This is not noise, it is rhythm. A rhythm you can almost feel if you stand still enough, boots planted in the snow, breath held just long enough to sense the hum beneath your feet. The moon speaks in silence, and the ice answers. With motion. There is a kind of devotion in this, a long-distance love between sky and earth, between that silver disk overhead and the frozen world below. One never truly touches the other, and yet their relationship shapes the balance of the Arctic. And perhaps in some way it shapes us too. Because to listen to the ice is to slow down, it is to pay attention to things most people miss, the faint crackling of pressure melting into sound, the whisper of wind across a fresh lead, the dull thump of a distant calving glacier like a heartbeat far away. These are not loud events, they do not shout, they do not rush, they wait to be noticed. And when you do notice them, when you finally hear the voice of the ice and the echo of the moon, you begin to feel different. Less hurried, less separate, less heavy. It is as though the moon teaches the ice to yield without breaking, to respond without resistance, to bend toward the rhythm of something larger, something slower, something eternal. Even now, with warming seas and thinning ice, this dance continues. Though the ice retreats earlier each spring, though it forms later each autumn, the moon still calls. And the ice, however fragile, still listens. It tries, it answers. It hums its ancient tune, quieter now but still filled with meaning. Because what matters is not how loud the song is. What matters is that it is still being sung. Now imagine the moon hanging low above a wide, frozen sea, its light spreading across the ice like milk spilled across glass. Nothing moves quickly here. The wind hushes its steps, even the stars seem slower. But beneath the surface something stirs, the ice is never truly still. And in the moon's long, silver gaze it begins to speak in creaks and low sighs, in shifting plates and distant echoes. This is a language made not of words, but of pressure and patience. All night the moon tugs at the sea, and the sea rises gently beneath the ice. The ice stretches to follow, but only so far. Then it bends, then it breaks. A long, slow crack might open across a field of white, not violently but deliberately, like a page being turned. A lead appears, dark water breathing into cold air. Steam rises. The crack may stretch for miles, invisible in its quietness, marked only by a low groan and a line of newly opened sea. And this, too, is part of listening. Because the ice is not resisting the moon, it is yielding, softly, not in weakness but in awareness. It knows that the forces pulling at it are greater than itself, and so it makes room, it shifts, it opens, it remembers. There is a lesson here for those who watch and wait beneath the polar sky. That strength does not always mean holding firm. That silence can be a kind of power. That even something as cold and vast and old as ice can move in response to love. Yes, love. Because there is love in the moon's attention. Not the love of stories or songs, but the love of presence, of always returning, of always pulling, of always watching. Every month the moon circles above the earth. Every month she grows and fades, brightens and vanishes, rises later and later until she disappears again. And with each cycle she pulls on the ice and the sea. She never stops, she never forgets. And every time, the ice remembers her. Even when it is breaking. Even when it is melting. Even when the seasons change too fast, and the temperatures rise too high, and the shapes of coastlines begin to blur, the ice continues to respond. Not in resistance, but in rhythm, in the slow unfolding of a dance that has lasted for millions of years. To live near this dance is to feel its weight and wonder. Hunters crossing sea ice can sometimes hear it shift beneath their sleds, a soft knock, a hollow groan, a whisper of pressure changing shape. They know these sounds, they trust them. They read them like trails or clouds. The moon is not just a symbol to them, it is part of survival, part of listening, part of knowing where to go, when to move, when to stop. Even the animals feel it. Walruses resting on the ice feel the moon's pull in the rising tides beneath them. Polar bears sense the timing of cracks and pressure ridges. Even the microscopic algae, hidden beneath the surface, bloom and fade with lunar light filtering down through cracks in the ice. Every piece of this frozen world is touched by the moon's long breath. And when spring arrives, when the ice begins to soften and puddles bloom on its surface like sky-colored mirrors, the rhythm remains. The moon does not stop calling. She pulls at meltwater. She stirs currents. She guides the breakup of flows into floating islands that drift and rejoin, split and scatter. The ice responds always, even as it disappears. And that is what makes this relationship so quiet and so sacred. Because the moon asks for nothing but motion. She gives no orders, she makes no noise, she only pulls. And the ice answers not with defiance but with grace. It flexes, it sings. As it opens. There is something deeply human in that. We too are pulled by invisible forces. We too crack and yield and drift. We too remember things without knowing how. And perhaps, like the ice, we are listening to something older than language, something slow and soft and full of love. The moon and the ice will never touch. One is sky, one is sea, but still they are bound, and through their quiet rhythm they shape the lives of whales and hunters, birds and bears, snowflakes and stars. They remind us that attention is its own kind of connection. That presence is a kind of promise. And that even silence can be a form of song. So when you stand on frozen ground and look up to find the moon glowing above the horizon, remember the ice beneath your feet. Remember the tide pulling gently through it. Remember the low hum of its memory. And know that somewhere, even now, the ice is answering. Even if we do not hear it. Even if we forget to listen. The ice still moves. The moon still pulls, and the quiet between them is filled with meaning. High on the shoulders of the world, where the mountains wear white crowns and clouds drift like dreams across the sky, snow falls. Not in torrents, not in storms, but in slow, whispering waves. Each flake drifts down with a secret, shaped by wind, touched by light, falling in silence onto silence. And as it lands, it does not vanish. It waits, it gathers, it layers. And so begins the breath of ancient snow. This snow is not like the snow of cities, trampled and melted by morning. It is older, quieter, it stays. It lingers through the months and years, pressing itself into memory. With each winter, the snow deepens. With each season, the snow hardens, until beneath the soft powder, a denser layer begins to form, a kind of frozen breath held in the skin of the earth. Glaciers are born this way. They do not erupt or arrive. They grow grain by grain from snow that refuses to forget. Over time, the layers press into one another, compacting under their own weight. The air between the flakes is squeezed into tiny bubbles, each one a perfect time capsule of breath, a record of the sky sealed inside frozen water. As the glacier thickens, these bubbles are carried deeper, preserved by the cold, hidden from light. And so, within every glacier, a story is sleeping. The snow that falls today might one day become the ice that scientists drill through 1,000 years from now. They will melt it gently, test its gases, examine its dust, and read in it the breath of the world as it once was. They will find traces of ancient fires, echoes of distant volcanoes, whispers of changing climates. But for now, the snow simply falls. Imagine standing among it as flakes drift past your eyelashes. You hold out your hand and catch one. It lands gently, then disappears. But you know it is not truly gone. It has joined the others, tucked into the white beneath your boots. In the quiet, you can almost hear the layers forming, settling, exhaling. Because snow breathes. Not like lungs, not like wind, but like a slow inhale over centuries. The snow gathers warmth from sunlight, then releases it at night. It creaks underfoot, shifts beneath skis, drifts against trees in patterns shaped by wind and memory. It holds heat and reflects light. It cools the air and dampens sound. In the Arctic, snow is not just a backdrop. It is a presence. And it listens. Scientists speak of snow albedo, the way its white surface reflects sunlight back into the sky, cooling the earth. When snow covers the land, it changes how heat moves, how clouds form, how air flows. A deeper snowpack insulates the ground, protecting roots and burrows, slowing the freeze of the soil beneath. Animals dig into it for warmth. Trees rely on its melt. Rivers are born from its breath. Each flake, delicate and fleeting, adds to a system vast and powerful. And yet snow is gentle. It does not shout. It arrives without announcement. It coats the world in softness. In the far north, snow defines the year. The first snow signals the true beginning of winter. The last snow tells of spring's slow return. People learn to read its texture, the crispness of new snow, the glassy crust of refrozen layers, the silence of deep drifts untouched by wind. And they breathe with it. Children sleep beneath snow-covered roofs, safe in the stillness. Hunters listen to its crunch beneath their feet, gauging the depth with each step. Animals track its surface, leaving prints that write brief, vanishing stories. In some cultures, snow is greeted with quiet respect. It is not a nuisance. It is a guest, a teacher, a blanket of old truths falling again. Even now, satellites orbit the Earth to study snow's breath. They measure its depth, its spread, its timing. Because snow does more than decorate the land. It shapes weather patterns. It feeds rivers far downstream. It holds and releases water with a rhythm that affects farmers and forests alike. Snow that falls on a mountain today might become the stream that nourishes a distant valley in spring. And all the while it breathes. The breath of ancient snow is not loud or sudden. It moves in millimeters, not miles. It shifts in seasons, not seconds, but it is constant. It sighs beneath our feet. It curls around trees. It deepens the quiet until sound itself feels different. In this whiteness, the world becomes simpler, slower, and somehow more whole. There is magic in its stillness. Not fantasy, but a kind of real, quiet magic. The magic of transformation without noise, of memory without form, of presence without demand. Because snow holds stories not in words, but in layers. It tells of past storms, hidden in compressed grains. It tells of wind's direction, of temperature changes, of smoke from distant fires. Even the color of the flakes, the way they sparkle or dull, reveals something about the sky from which they fell. And as snow deepens into firn and firn hardens into ice, the breath becomes stronger, more certain, more lasting. It begins to hold the weight of history. And so the glaciers grow. Slowly, silently. They are made of moments we thought had melted away. Every breath exhaled by a tree, every puff of steam from a whale, every fire long cooled and forgotten, trapped in the ice like stars caught in glass. And all of it begins with snow. Falling, falling, falling without end. Let us walk further now into the heart of that snow-covered silence, into the layers that lie beneath our feet, pressed and forgotten by time. The breath of ancient snow is not only a whisper from the past, it is also a keeper of balance, a quiet force that helps hold the rhythm of the world together, even as the seasons shift and the skies change their hue. As snow compacts into glacial ice, something subtle happens. The air trapped within each layer forms a trail of time like beads on a string. 100 feet below the surface, you might find a breath exhaled during the rise of ancient empires. 1,000 feet down, and you're holding air that once drifted through forests untouched by humans. Deeper still, the ice becomes a window into climates that no longer exist, warmer ages, colder ones, moments of great fire or silence. And yet the ice says nothing loudly. It waits until we learn how to listen. Scientists drill into glaciers in Greenland, Antarctica, and high mountain ranges, drawing long, frozen cylinders of snow that has hardened over tens of thousands of years. They melt these cores gently, coaxing the secrets from their frozen chambers. And in the vapor, they hear stories. Tiny changes in the ratio of oxygen isotopes tell them how warm or cold the air once was. Bits of trapped dust reveal what kinds of storms were blowing when that snow first fell. Traces of lead or mercury tell of distant volcanoes or early metalwork. Even pollen caught in the ice can trace where the wind carried seeds, from deserts or distant plains. These are not just measurements, they are memories. Snow, after all, is a collector. It gathers whatever the sky lets fall: smoke, soot, silence. Each flake forms around a particle of dust or salt, a tiny fragment of the earth lifted skyward by wind or wave. As it falls, the flake may pick up more, ash from a distant fire or faint traces of forest oils carried by air. When it lands, it seals its journey in place, pressing it into the white silence. And there it stays, a frozen witness to the life above. In this way, snow links the sky to the ground. It takes what floats and turns it into form. And when enough of it falls, it becomes a glacier, a slow, dreaming river of ice that moves without rushing, reshaping valleys, carving fjords, pressing the world into new shapes. And always, always breathing. Though it may seem solid, a glacier is not still. It flows. Gravity pulls it downhill year by year, inch by inch. It bends around stone, it slips over bedrock, it carries with it ancient dust, fragments of trees, the bones of long-forgotten creatures. And deep within, the pressure builds not violently but with purpose. The ice creaks, it cracks, it melts and refreezes, and each movement is a breath. Even the coldest glaciers hum with life. Microbes sleep inside them, some frozen for thousands of years, waiting for warmth to return. Tiny ecosystems form in meltwater pools on their surfaces, where algae bloom in green and pink. In the soft light of polar twilight, these glacial pools reflect a sky turning lavender and gold, the colors mixing with the snow to create a world that feels like a painting still in progress. And the breath continues. It's in the way snow absorbs sound, softening even the loudest steps. It's in the way cold air carries scent farther, sharper, the smell of pine or sea or wood smoke drifting low to the ground. It's in the way time feels longer in the snow, as if hours stretch, not in discomfort, but in peace. For those who live near glaciers, snow. W is more than weather, it is presence. People read its signs. They feel its weight on the roof, know the difference between new snow and hoarfrost, between sticky snow and dry. They watch for avalanches, track changes in the way snow settles on mountain slopes, understand how a single warm wind can change the landscape overnight. In places where winter rules the calendar, snow is both teacher and test. Yet it gives as much as it takes. Snow feeds rivers that supply millions. Its slow melt provides drinking water, waters crops, cools forests. Without snow, drought deepens, lakes shrink, fires spread. The breath of ancient snow becomes a promise to the future, a reservoir of life waiting to be released, not all at once, but in steady sips in time with the sun's return. And now that balance is shifting. The snow is melting faster than before. The glaciers are retreating, their breath shortened, their stories threatened. Places that once stayed white all year now show stone and soil. Ice that once groaned beneath explorers' feet now crumbles into the sea. And still, even in this fragility, the snow continues to fall. It continues to layer. It continues to remember. Because even if the world changes, the snow does not forget. And there is still time to listen. To kneel in the snow and feel its coolness seep into your palms. To press your ear against a drift and hear the deep, slow hush beneath. To walk into the falling quiet and realize this is more than weather. This is history in motion. This is breath. This is a message sent from sky to ground, from cloud to forest, from past to future. And all you have to do is be still. Because the snow is still speaking. And it always has been. Now let us return one final time to the quiet, white breath of the earth. The snow beneath our feet, the glacier beneath the snow, the ice beneath the glacier, all of it still, all of it breathing, all of it holding something older than any voice. When we speak of snow, we often think of softness, of silence, of cold that brushes the skin and vanishes. But this snow, the snow that becomes memory, that deepens into centuries, it is different. It is not only something we walk across, it is something that walks with us. Because even as the snow rests, it changes. Even as it freezes, it flows. A single flake lands and joins the drift. The drift thickens into a field. The field rises into a hill. Then one day, long after the storm that made it has passed, it becomes part of a glacier, slow, immense, and full of breath. This breath moves not through lungs, but through cycles. Freeze and thaw, light and shadow, wait and release. It is the breath of time itself, exhaled into the landscape. And when glaciers crack, when they calve into the sea, when they melt and flow into rivers, that breath escapes. It rejoins the water cycle. It rises again as mist, as cloud, as rain. It returns to the sky from which it once fell. And the snow begins again. But no two breaths are ever the same. No two winters shape the same glacier. No two meltwaters follow the same course. Even the oldest snow, buried beneath hundreds of years of pressure, carries a signature all its own, a fingerprint of the wind that made it, the air that wrapped around it, the firelight or moonlight that danced across its surface before it settled into stillness. In this way, snow is personal, each layer a moment, each flake a message. To some, this might feel fragile, but there is great strength in this kind of memory, not the strength of stone or steel, but of presence, of being everywhere at once. Snow does not resist the world, it embraces it. It falls without needing to be caught. It blankets the sharpest edges. It gives without asking. And slowly, gently, it becomes part of the land itself. The animals know this. Foxes curl into drifts, letting snow cover their backs for warmth. Hares turn white in winter, disappearing into the quiet. Bears dig dens beneath layers that breathe slowly with the warmth of their bodies. Even the birds, tiny, light, pulsing with life, know which kinds of snow will hold their weight and which will bury them in a hush they cannot rise from. And above it all, the snow keeps falling. Even now, even with the climate warming, even as the world begins to change more quickly than before, snow falls. Not always where it once did, not always as much, but it falls. And each flake carries the memory of all that came before. It falls into the cracks left behind by retreating glaciers. It drifts into the hollow spaces we once thought permanent. And it says, without words, I remember. That memory is not always peaceful. It holds the weight of storms, of lost forests, of fires carried on wind. But it also holds light, the sparkle of a winter morning, the way sunlight scatters into rainbow halos through ice crystals, the gentle drift of flakes past a cabin window where a child sleeps under a heavy blanket. And still, beneath all of this, the glaciers breathe. In their slow march, in their creaking silence, in the echo of their collapse and rebirth. When an iceberg calves from a glacier and crashes into the sea, it is not only an end. It is a beginning. That ice melts. It enters currents. It joins the ocean. It feeds the clouds. And the clouds will one day return it as snow again. This cycle, snow to glacier, glacier to sea, sea to sky, sky to snow, is not only science. It is story. It is the story of how the earth remembers itself, of how water carries time, of how cold can be alive. And if we forget this, the snow will remember for us. That is its nature, to record, to reflect, to preserve, to hold the breath of the world even when no one is listening. But we are listening now. We hear the crack of ice beneath our steps. We feel the softness of flakes on our skin. We see the slow melt creeping down mountains, the thinness of snow that used to lie thick, and something stirs in us, something that says, pay attention. Not because snow is fragile, but because it is honest. It tells us what has changed. It shows us what remains. And sometimes, in the stillness after a storm, it gives us a moment of peace. A moment where everything feels whole again, just wind and sky and white. That too is breath. The breath of the world as it remembers how to rest, how to slow, how to become quiet again. And as we leave the snow behind, as spring begins to warm the earth, as rivers rise with meltwater, as birds return to trees, we carry that breath with us, in our lungs, in our minds, in the memory of what it feels like to stand beneath a falling sky in a world remade by softness. Because once you have listened to the snow, truly listened, you never forget its voice. And somewhere deep inside, a part of you keeps breathing with it. Beneath the wide silence of the polar night, under a ceiling of frozen white and skies that glow with ghostly green, there lies a secret sea. It does not shimmer with sunlight. It does not roar with waves. It breathes slowly, hidden beneath the ice. A great dark ocean, moving, watching, waiting beneath the frozen sky. This is the Arctic Ocean. To stand above it is to feel only the hush of snow, the crunch of ice underfoot, the soft sigh of wind between drifts. But far below, where light has never touched in warmth, is a memory. An entire world is alive. Not asleep, not still, but alive. Breathing through currents and whispers, stirring with creatures that never rise to the surface, glowing with life that does not need the sun. The ocean beneath the ice is not empty. It is not barren. It is filled with quiet wonders. Imagine drifting beneath the sea ice as a seal does. Above you the ice is thick and jagged, its underbelly etched with grooves and ridges like the ceiling of a frozen cave. Light filters through faintly green, dim, shifting like breath. Below the water is cold but full of movement. Tiny particles drift, silken with nutrients. Jellyfish pulse slowly in the current. Shrimp-like amphipods flicker past in clouds. Here, even in the darkest season, life continues. It begins with the smallest things. Microscopic algae cling to the underside of the ice, feeding on whatever light reaches through. They bloom quietly, painting the ice from beneath in streaks of green and brown. These algae, invisible from above, are the base of an entire hidden food web. They feed zooplankton, tiny animals that drift and pulse, that rise and fall with the rhythm of the ocean. And the rhythm is everything. Because the Arctic Ocean breathes with the planet, its currents are part of a great global engine, moving cold water southward and bringing warmer water in return. Beneath the ice, rivers of seawater travel in patterns carved by wind, salt, and the turning earth. These deep currents shape weather across continents, steer the path of storms, and carry whispers of the polar night all the way to distant shores. And through all of it, the ice listens. It floats on the surface, never fixed. It drifts and turns, shaped by the ocean beneath and the sky above. As winds push the ice into great sheets and cracks, as the sea swells and shifts below, the two worlds speak to each other without words. When the ocean warms, the ice thins. When the ice thickens, the ocean slows its breath. This conversation has gone on for thousands of years. But it is not only physics. It is not only salt and temperature and motion. It is also poetry, an old, slow poetry written in tides and moonlight, in shadow and sound. In the deepest parts of the Arctic Ocean, there are creatures that no one has yet named. Some of them flicker with bioluminescence, brief pulses of blue or green that echo like sighs across the black. Others move so slowly they seem part of the sea floor, waiting for food to fall from above. Some have lived in these waters for millions of years, unchanged by ice ages and warmth, by the coming and going of all human memory. To them, the polar night is not a hardship, it is home. And to the people who live near this ocean, who hunt on its ice and fish in its waters, this hidden world is as familiar as the stars above. The Inupiat, the Chukchi, the Kalalit, they have known for generations that the ocean speaks. They hear it in the hum of ice flows, in the way the wind carries over leads, in the silence that comes before a shift in tide. Their stories are filled with creatures that live in the deep, narwhals that listen through the darkness, spirits that move beneath the surface, animals that know how to vanish. And science is beginning to listen too. Using submarines, sensors, and under-ice microphones, researchers are mapping the Arctic Ocean like never before. They are discovering warm pulses of Atlantic water that slip beneath the cold surface, carving invisible rivers through the deep. They are finding underwater mountains and ridges that redirect currents, shape ecosystems, and guide the migration of animals we cannot yet see. Even the sounds of this ocean are being recorded, the calls of whales, the groans of ice, the soft shiver of moving water. These sounds are unlike anything found in open seas. They are quieter, more careful. They move slowly, like voices muffled by snow. And all of it happens in darkness. Not the darkness of fear or absence, but the darkness of depth. The kind of darkness where stars are born, where seeds germinate, where life begins. The polar night above the Arctic Ocean is not empty. It is full of invisible light, not from the sun, but from memory, from motion, from the quiet persistence of living things. And that persistence is remarkable. Because life here must adapt not just to cold, but to change. The sea ice forms and breaks. The seasons shift from total light to total dark. The temperature drops low enough to freeze skin in minutes. And still whales sing. Still fish glide. Still polar bears wait at the edge of the ice, listening for the breath of a seal rising through a hidden hole. The ocean beneath the frozen sky is a place of waiting. Waiting for light to return. Waiting for cracks to form. Waiting for warmth, for movement, for the next slow step in a dance that never stops. And through it all it breathes. Softly, deeply, always. Let's drift further beneath the surface now, into the layers of water that swirl and turn below the silence of the Arctic ice. Down here time moves differently. It does not tick or chime. It pulses, it sways. It flows in long, patient currents that have circled the globe for thousands of years. Every drop of water in the Arctic Ocean is part of a larger story, a deep, slow migration that connects it to every sea on Earth. This is the Great Ocean Conveyor, a looping path of deep water that moves heat and salt and memory around the planet. It begins in part here in the cold north, where surface waters are cooled by icy winds and thickened by the formation of sea ice. As ice forms, salt is pushed out, making the water beneath denser. That dense water sinks, slipping down into the darkness and beginning a journey that may last centuries. The Arctic Ocean, though small, plays an outsized role in this system. It is a place where water is transformed, where surface becomes depth, where warm currents from the Atlantic slip quietly beneath cold polar waters, creating hidden boundaries, invisible layers that never fully mix. Scientists call these thermohaline fronts, lines drawn not by temperature or tide, but by the subtle difference in salt and cold. These invisible boundaries shape everything. They guide where nutrients rise, where animals gather, where sound travels. Whales know them. So do seals. So does the ice itself, which thickens or thins depending on how warm these hidden waters become. And yet, above all this movement, the surface seems still. That's the illusion of the polar night, that nothing is happening. But beneath the ice, the Arctic Ocean is alive with motion. Water flows through the Fram Strait between Greenland and Svalbard, carrying Atlantic warmth northward. Some of that warmth remains trapped below, too deep to melt the ice above. But as global temperatures rise, more of it finds its way upward, thinning the sea ice from beneath. And still, life continues. There are fish that live their entire lives without seeing sunlight. Some have antifreeze in their blood, proteins that prevent ice crystals from forming inside their cells. Others glow faintly in the dark, their bodies lit from within by slow chemical fire. Some drift, some swim, some anchor themselves to rocks and wait for what the current will bring. All of them are part of a delicate web held together not by light but by rhythm. The ice above groans, the currents below sigh, and in between life pulses. In spring, when the light begins to return, everything changes. The algae under the ice bloom rapidly, fed by the sudden brightness. These blooms attract zooplankton in great clouds, which in turn draw fish and whales and birds. It is a feast built on waiting, a celebration of survival. But even in the deep night of winter, the food web never fully stops. It slows, it rests, but it remains, because the ocean does not sleep. Some scientists call the Arctic Ocean a memory system. It stores the past in its currents, its temperatures, its chemistry. Water that entered through the Bering Strait decades ago still circles in gyres, layered beneath newer flows. The salinity tells a story. So does the oxygen. So does the carbon dissolved within. The Arctic is one of the few places where the ocean exhales carbon into the air and inhales it again, a breathing of the planet itself. And every breath matters. Because what happens here touches everywhere. When the sea ice shrinks, more heat is absorbed by the dark ocean. When the ocean warms, the jet stream shifts. When the deep water currents change speed, the whole world feels the ripple. The ocean beneath the frozen sky is not isolated, it is central. And yet it feels so hidden, so sacred. For those who travel its surface, hunters, fishers, researchers, it is both a path and a mystery. To navigate the Arctic Ocean is to feel both humbled and protected. The ice may open or close without warning. Leads may form, widen, then freeze again overnight. Pressure ridges rise like frozen waves, impassable and sharp, and beneath them the ocean waits, full of sound and motion. Some people say you can feel the water's presence even from above, through the soles of your boots on the ice. They speak of a deep resonance, a kind of thrum in the bones, a knowledge that you are standing above something ancient and vast and always moving. And the animals know it too. Narwhals with their long spiral tusks navigate these hidden highways with astonishing precision. Beluga whales travel in groups through the cracks and openings, their calls bouncing off the ice in liquid song. Bowhead whales, massive and slow, live their entire lives here, sometimes for over 200 years, their hearts beating slowly beneath the frozen ceiling. The Inuit call these creatures by names filled with reverence. They are not resources. They are kin, teachers, messengers. Their patterns are watched, remembered, passed down. A change in whale behavior might mean shifting ice. A silence in the seals might mean a storm is coming. Every sound, every absence, every breath is part of the listening. Because here, knowledge is not separate from survival. It is the same. And the ocean, in all its darkness, in all its unseen turning, remains at the center. Not loud, not proud, but steady, a breath beneath the world, a memory too deep for light, a reminder that life can flourish even where no warmth shines. Even where the sun does not rise, the ocean does not rest. It flows, it listens, it gives. Now let us return to the surface, not to leave the ocean behind, but to see it differently, to feel the stillness above and remember the movement below. The Arctic Ocean remains unseen by most, even by those who walk upon its frozen roof. But if you stop, if you listen, if you breathe in rhythm with the cold, you begin to sense the weight of what lies beneath. It is not a burden, but a presence, vast, quiet, and full of meaning. The frozen sky above reflects no thunder, no rush, but it does reflect memory. On nights when the aurora dances in ribbons of green, the ice beneath glows faintly. And beneath that glowing ceiling, the water continues its slow journey. The ocean beneath the ice is not just an expanse, It is a memory made liquid, a keeper of Earth's breath, a dark mirror that reflects the deep rhythms of the world. And like all great mirrors, it teaches us something about ourselves. Here in the Arctic, where night can last for months, the ocean teaches resilience. Not the kind that pushes and struggles, but the kind that listens and adapts. The creatures here do not resist the dark, they embrace it. They have learned to wait, to bloom when light returns, to move gently, to feel more than see. Even their bodies are shaped by the ocean's patience, streamlined, quiet, tuned to echo and whisper. And we, too, can learn from this. In a world that moves quickly, that rushes from day to night without pause, the Arctic Ocean reminds us that stillness is not absence, that slowness is not weakness, that a hidden life can be just as powerful, just as connected, just as full of light, not the light of the sun, but the light of knowing, of memory, of presence. When we talk about oceans, we often speak of depth in numbers, meters, salinity, pressure, temperature. But the depth of the Arctic Ocean is also emotional. To gaze across its frozen surface is to feel the weight of something both fragile and infinite. It holds the breath of melting glaciers, the dreams of whales, the ghost trails of ships that passed through long ago and vanished into fog. And still it waits. Even as the world changes, the Arctic Ocean remains. Its ice thins, its temperature rises, its currents shift, but it is still here, still breathing, still giving. In some ways it is more vulnerable now, but in others it is more visible, more spoken of, more studied, more understood. And with that understanding comes something rare, the chance to protect what we cannot always see. Because what happens here touches everywhere. The currents that begin beneath the Arctic ice carry messages to distant shores. They cool tropical oceans, they shape the winds above deserts, they guide rain to farmlands and pull storms across continents. A change in the Arctic ripples outward, not with violence but with persistence. The ocean speaks slowly, but it never stops speaking. And we are beginning to hear it. Scientists sail into these waters with care, measuring, mapping, listening. Satellites watch the shifting patterns of ice and temperature. Indigenous communities speak of what has changed, how the ice forms later, how the animals move differently, how the winds feel unfamiliar. Their voices, rooted in generations of observation, echo the findings of modern science. The ocean is changing, but it is still alive. And where there is life, there is hope. Because life in the Arctic has always known how to change. It bends, it drifts, it waits. It finds warmth in cold, light in dark, rest in movement. The ocean beneath the frozen sky does not fear transformation. It absorbs it, it flows with it. It teaches us that adaptation is not surrender, it is wisdom, it is grace. Even the ice itself, though vanishing in some places, still returns. New ice forms, new snow falls. The cycle, though altered, continues. And beneath it, the ocean holds memory. A long, deep breath of all that has ever passed through its waters, fish and frost, whale and wave, silence and song. So if you ever find yourself near this place, where sky meets sea in a hush of white and silver, pause, close your eyes, feel the cold against your skin. Listen not for noise, but for presence. Beneath your feet, water moves, slowly, purposefully, alive with story, alive with sound. And in that moment, you may feel it too. The pull of something larger than yourself, a current not only in the sea but in the soul, a sense that you are standing not on the edge of the world but at its heart. Because beneath the frozen sky, the ocean is not just a place. It is a voice. It is a breath. It is the memory of Earth itself, moving beneath us always. And even in the longest dark, it never stops. In the farthest reaches of the earth, where the sun forgets to rise and the horizon remains a dream of shadow, darkness is not empty. It is not silence or fear or absence. It is a teacher, a presence, a place where light learns to dream. In the long polar night, when the sky closes its bright eye for months at a time, the world does not stop. It softens, it deepens. It begins to listen to the rhythms that lie beneath brightness. Here in this prolonged dusk, life has found a way not just to survive, but to bloom. Not in the way of gardens or sunlit trees, but in the way of glowing plankton, of animals that shimmer from within, of creatures that open their eyes wide and see with senses that have no name. The darkness of the Arctic winter is not a void, it is a canvas, and nature paints it with patience and wonder. To live in this darkness is to know a different kind of time. There are no sunrises to divide the day, no long shadows to stretch across the snow. Time flows like water under ice, steady, cool, and slow. In this place the stars remain fixed, the moon circles low, and the aurora moves like a soft pulse across the heavens. The earth keeps turning, but the light does not return, not yet. And in this quiet, something unexpected begins to stir, light that does not come from the sun. Some of it is biological. Deep beneath the sea ice, tiny creatures pulse with bioluminescence, casting gentle flashes into the surrounding dark. Plankton swirl like stars in the water. Jellyfish drift with soft blue halos. Some fish carry their own lanterns, guiding them through the shadows like living constellations. They do not need daylight, they carry their own. Other light comes from above, but not from the sun. The aurora borealis, born of solar particles and the Earth's magnetic field, ripples across the sky. It is not constant, not predictable, but when it comes, it transforms the night. Colors dance where only stars were moments before. The snow reflects the glow. The ice becomes luminous. The darkness itself begins to shine. But the most profound light is quieter still. It is the light inside living things, the adaptations that let Arctic creatures sense and respond to a world without day. Reindeer, for example, have eyes that change with the seasons. In summer, their retinas are golden, perfect for filtering the brightness of the midnight sun. But in winter, their eyes turn blue, allowing them to see more clearly in the dim, blue-toned darkness of the polar night. This shift allows them to navigate a world lit only by the moon, the stars, and the faintest echoes of distant light. Even plants respond. Beneath the snow, certain mosses and lichens continue their slow work, photosynthesizing with the dimmest twilight that filters through ice. They do not bloom, but they endure. They wait. They rest in the dark without vanishing. And when the light returns, they are still there, ready. Darkness, then, is not an ending. It is a preparation. A place where life learns to pause, to adjust, to imagine new ways of being, where creatures become more sensitive, more attuned, where light, denied the sky, is born from within. In this way, darkness becomes sacred. It slows everything down. It reveals what cannot be seen in brightness, the flicker of a fox's eyes in moonlight, the shimmer of frost crystals on a frozen branch, the glow of your own breath rising into the still air. It teaches us to pay attention, to move more slowly, to listen to things we usually drown out with noise. And perhaps most importantly, darkness makes the return of light more meaningful. After months of dimness, the first appearance of the sun is not taken for granted. It is celebrated. People gather to watch it rise above the horizon, even if only for minutes. Children laugh, elders smile, hands reach toward the golden warmth. It is not just sunrise, it is reunion. A soft reminder that light always returns, even when we forget its shape. But until then, darkness continues to teach. It teaches patience. Life here cannot rush. The snow falls slowly, layering silence upon silence. The rivers sleep beneath their frozen lids. The air moves carefully, shaping drifts and dunes. Even the people walk with greater care, each step measured, each breath held a little longer than usual. It teaches stillness. In this world, being still is not the same as doing nothing. It is listening, waiting, breathing with the rhythm of the night. It is knowing that growth does not always mean motion. That presence does not always need light. And it teaches softness, the kind of softness that is not weak but wise. The snow is soft. The fur of the animals is soft. The sounds are soft. Even the voices, when they rise at all, are gentle, as if the world knows that to speak loudly here would be to shatter something fragile and precious. To live through the polar night is to become part of this dream. To give into its rhythm, to let go of the sun not in despair but in trust, knowing it will return, knowing that in the meantime the darkness has something to offer, something subtle, something sacred, something we forget in the noise of day. So the night stretches on, the stars spin, the snow glows faintly. Somewhere deep below, a fish flickers like a lantern. Somewhere high above, the aurora dances. And in between, everything listens. Because in this place, darkness is not the opposite of light. It is where light is born. Let's drift even deeper into the stillness, where the long shadow of winter wraps the land in velvet hush, and darkness settles like a slow breath across sky and snow. In this softened world, the rhythms of life become quieter but never silent. The absence of sunlight is not an end but a shift, and within that shift, life discovers new ways of shining, ways born not from brightness, but from attention, from memory, from the deep wisdom of waiting. The creatures of the Arctic do not resist the dark. They wear it like a second skin. The Arctic fox turns white, disappearing into snowdrifts, its tiny feet padded with fur to muffle sound. It listens more than it sees. Its nose twitches, sensing heat through layers of snow, tracking the quiet heartbeat of a mouse hidden beneath. The darkness becomes its guide, its ally. It teaches the fox where to look, when to pounce, how to survive with grace and quiet cunning. The polar bear, largest predator of the north, becomes a master of silence. Its paws are wide, its fur dense, its breath slow. It moves across the ice as though skating, careful not to crack the surface to disturb the stillness. It waits by a seal's breathing hole for hours, unmoving, letting the rhythm of the sea ice guide its patience. In the darkness, it is not blind, it is focused, tuned to shadows. Every shape becomes a story, every movement a possibility. And then there are the humans who have lived in this landscape for thousands of years. To them, darkness is not something to escape. It is part of life, part of the cycle. The people of the North, Inuit, Sami, Chukchi, have shaped their cultures around the turning of light and dark. They follow the patterns of stars instead of clocks. They listen for changes in the wind, in the snow, in the stillness. They learn from the animals, from the land, from the sky. Their stories tell of spirits that dance in the aurora, of animals that carry light within, of ancestors who speak. Through the silence, these are not superstitions. They are truths carried in metaphor. They are the way the heart remembers what the eyes cannot always see. In the darkness, they find connection, not only with each other, but with the world that holds them. Even now, with electric light reaching into every home, the night still speaks. It says, slow down, be still, let your eyes adjust, let your ears grow sharper, let your thoughts become gentler. In this darkness, not everything must be seen to be understood. And the light dreams on. It dreams in seeds buried beneath snow, waiting for the thaw. It dreams in buds curled tightly against the cold, storing sunlight remembered from autumn. It dreams in the minds of animals, in the curling sleep of hibernation, in the warmth held deep inside fur and feather. Even the rivers, frozen and silent on the surface, dream beneath their ice, currents still flowing, shaping stones, feeding roots, preparing for spring. Darkness teaches us to honor this dreaming. To know that not all growth is visible, that becoming is often a quiet thing. That light too needs time to rest. The sun is not gone, it is only hidden, circling just below the horizon, biding its time. And when it returns, it will rise slowly, carefully, as if not to wake the world too quickly. But even before the sun appears, there are signs. The sky begins to change color, just barely a softer blue, a hint of gold behind the mountains. The snow starts to gleam with a light that is not from stars nor moon but from memory. Birds begin to stir, calling into the still cold air. Foxes become more active, the bears wake, and the people gather, watching the edge of the world for that first warmth to rise. And when it does, when the sun peeks over the rim of the earth after months of slumber, it is not just light, it is joy, it is ceremony, it is homecoming. Children laugh in its glow. Elders raise their faces to it, hands reach out as if to hold something sacred. Because here, where darkness has taught them how to see, how to feel, how to wait, the return of light is not taken for granted. And so darkness becomes not an enemy of light, but its teacher. It shows us contrast. It teaches us humility. It whispers that everything cycles, that nothing is forever, not even the longest night. It reminds us that we, too, carry light inside us, that even in our own quiet seasons, we are still becoming. Perhaps that is why the polar night feels so vast, not because of what is missing, but because of what is present. The stars shine brighter, the snow reflects more, the quiet becomes more meaningful, everything slows down enough to be felt. In many ways, it is only through darkness that we come to understand light. Not just as brightness, but as warmth. Not just as color, but as connection. Not just as energy, but as presence. And even when the sun returns, that understanding remains. Because the darkness never really leaves us. It becomes part of who we are, etched in our memories, shaped into our stories, carried in our bones. We carry the silence of those long nights. We carry the patience. We carry the soft, flickering light that once kept us company when the world was shadow and silver. And so we are changed. Not by fear, but by quiet. Not by absence, but by wonder. Now let us stay just a little longer in the heart of the polar night, not to hurry through it, but to sit with it, to breathe in its stillness, and to feel how it changes everything it touches. The darkness here is not simply the absence of light, it is presence itself, a presence so deep, so constant, that it becomes a place where light is not lost but shaped. It becomes a cocoon, a cradle, a kind of quiet mirror in which life learns what it means to glow. Inside this mirror, something profound happens. Perception begins to shift. Eyes adjust, yes, but so does the heart. Without the sun to direct your days, you begin to live by subtler rhythms. The curve of stars around Polaris, the whisper of wind against snow, the pause between distant cracking sounds in the ice. You begin to feel time differently, not in seconds, not in hours, but in breaths, in shadows, in the hush between heartbeats. This kind of darkness has gravity. It pulls your attention inward. It makes you listen to the quiet things. The soft wing beat of a snowy owl overhead, the distant bark of a fox on a ridge, the slow stretch of your own fingers inside a warm glove. These are not moments you chase. They come to you slowly if you let them, and they change you. Because when light is not easily given, it must be noticed. You begin to see how the snow itself seems to shimmer under moonlight, how frost forms perfect feathers on the edge of a window pane, how the breath of a sleeping dog curls upward like a small, rising cloud, and you begin to feel the warmth that still exists inside a cabin, inside a story, inside a body held close. In the cultures that have long lived in these latitudes, the polar night is not feared, it is respected, it is seen as part of life's necessary rhythm. A time for introspection, for quiet, for gathering close to others. Songs are sung more slowly. Meals are prepared with care. Tools are sharpened, stories told, futures dreamed. The long night is not wasted, it is woven into the shape of the year. Children learn the sky like a second alphabet. They learn to find the W of Cassiopeia, the hunter's bow of Orion, the ever-watching North Star. They learn how the moonlight makes snow glow blue, how to walk in shadow without fear. They learn that in darkness you can find a different kind of light, one that comes not from above but from within. Even scientists measuring photons and mapping particles speak with reverence about the polar night. It is not simply an environmental condition, it is a psychological one. The mind changes here, the senses sharpen, thoughts become longer, more patient. There is a reason why researchers in polar stations often write poetry, why explorers in the old days kept journals filled with wonder and silence. There is something in this darkness that invites softness. It slows you down until you can hear yourself think and then more quietly feel. You start to ask different questions, not just what comes next, but what is now, not what can I see, but what is here. You begin to realize how much of life is hidden in the in-between. And then, just as the darkness begins to feel endless, a shift. A band of gold, faint and low, along the edge of the world. A soft glow behind the hills. A different quality of light, not starlight, not moonlight, but something warmer, richer. The first breath of returning sun. It is not sudden, it does not blaze, it creeps, it nudges, but those who live here know the signs, the way shadows lengthen on snowdrifts, the way ice crystals on windows melt slightly at noon, the way animals stir with a kind of quiet excitement, the way people look at the horizon again and again as if waiting for someone beloved to return home. And when the sun finally rises, for just a few minutes on that first day, everything stops. It is not just a sunrise. It is a reawakening. Faces turn upward, eyes close, shoulders loosen, tears may come, laughter bubbles out. Even the silence feels different, brighter, more alive. It is not the light itself that causes this, but the return, the knowing that darkness was not forever, that the world kept turning even when we could not see the light. And this is what the polar night teaches us. That light is more than illumination. It is longing. It is memory. It is the thing we carry even in the deepest dark. Because even when the sky is closed, even when the sun forgets our names, we remember. We glow faintly at first, then brighter. We find ways to see each other, to guide, to hold. And when the sun returns, it finds us still here, changed but intact. Softer, slower, wiser. So let the night linger a little longer. Let its lessons settle in your bones. Let it show you the small lights that live in every creature, every snowflake, every silence. Let it remind you that darkness is not the opposite of light, but its sculptor, its friend, its teacher. And when the first beam of sun finally touches the snow, let it fall not only on the ice, but on you. Because now you are ready to receive it. You who have seen in the dark. You who have dreamed with the stars. You who have learned how light is born. In the quiet folds of the Arctic, where the wind carries echoes more than voices, light leaves behind its traces. Even when it vanishes for months, it is never fully gone. It lingers, woven into the snow, tucked into the bark of ancient trees, caught in the glint of ice along a river's edge. In this northern world, where winter wraps the land in a long blue hush, light is remembered not just by people, but by everything that lives. It is a different kind of memory, not one of thoughts or language, but of rhythm and reflection. The land holds the sun's last footsteps. The sky remembers its glow. Even the creatures carry that memory, embedded in the turning of their cells, the slow pulse of their seasons, the shape of their lives as they stretch toward the warmth that once was and will be again. Plants remember the light. Beneath the snow, where roots sleep curled like closed fists, there are tiny biological clocks still ticking. Arctic willows and dwarf birches, buried for months in frozen silence, hold on to the knowledge of day. When the darkness lifts, they do not need to learn the light again. They recognize it, respond to it. Their buds know when to stir, their stems when to soften. It's not the warmth alone, it's the memory. A cellular knowing that tells them, now, begin again. This kind of memory is found deep in the smallest places. Inside the cells of mosses, of lichens that cling to rock like frozen breath, proteins wait for light. Circadian rhythms do. Not stop in the dark, they slow, they stretch, but they remain. When light returns, even in brief flickers, those rhythms wake up. The Arctic, though frozen, is never fully still. It hums with anticipation, and that hum is shaped by the memory of sun. Animals, too, carry the memory of light. The snowshoe hare turns white in winter, blending with snow, and brown again when the sun begins to lengthen the days. This shift is not reactive alone, it is anticipatory. Triggered by subtle changes in light called photoperiods, the hare prepares for what it knows is coming. It remembers through generations, through instinct, what must be done to survive and thrive in the turning year. Caribou herds move not just by temperature, but by light. They sense the return of the sun, the lengthening of day, and begin their migrations accordingly. Their bodies are tuned to a world where light shapes life, not just in how it warms, but in how it teaches time. Even humans here live in the memory of light. In villages where the sun disappears, people still rise and rest by its imagined rhythm. Meals are eaten not because the sun stands high, but because the body remembers when it should. Lights are turned on in homes in soft mimicry of dawn. Lamps glow in windows like small echoes of the sky that used to be. And when the light finally comes again, it feels not new but familiar, like a returning friend. But this memory is not always joyful. There is grief, too, in remembering light. For as the climate shifts, as winters grow warmer and ice grows thin, the Arctic holds the memory of what once was more tightly. Glaciers remember the old snows. Permafrost holds the breath of ancient forests, long buried. The snow remembers being deeper, longer. The animals remember thicker ice, colder days. And they wait, uncertain, for the return of something that may no longer come in the same way. Still, the memory does not fade. Because the Arctic is not passive, it is not a place forgotten by time. It is a place that records time in every frozen line, in every annual ring of sea ice, in every shadow stretched across the snow. The length of that shadow tells a story. The softness of twilight says something. The sharp edge of a frost line reveals more than temperature, it reveals history. And so, in this place, light is not just something seen. It is something felt, something remembered, something trusted. Even when it is absent, the world leans toward it. Trees bend where they know it will return. Animals sleep through the hours that once held its warmth. People tell stories in the dark, stories that carry the shape of light. They speak of sun dogs and golden halos, of summer evenings when the light never left, of times when the snow glowed pink and blue beneath a sun that hovered like a dream on the edge of the world. These stories are more than comfort, they are continuity. They remind the children what the elders know, that the light always returns. That darkness is not forever, that even when the sun forgets the sky, the land remembers its touch. And perhaps so do we. We remember the way light falls across a frozen lake, the way it glints in the eye of a reindeer, the way it slips through the edge of a curtain at the start of a new day. We remember the softness it brings, the colors it casts, the warmth, yes, but also the clarity, the way it makes even the smallest flake of snow shimmer with meaning. So when the world turns away from the sun, when the Arctic folds itself into shadow once more, there is no fear. Only waiting. Because the memory of light is enough to carry us through the dark. Enough to stir the roots, to guide the animals, to open the heart. Enough to remind us that we, too, hold light within. And that memory, held quietly in shadow, is what lets us dream. Let us now wander further into this world of remembered light, where shadow does not erase brightness but deepens it, stretching its meaning across time. The Arctic is not a place where the light simply goes and returns. It is a place where the light leaves behind its imprint, a soft and steady echo woven into the land itself. The snow remembers how to glow. The ice remembers how to shine. Even the air holds the shape of radiance, long after the sun has slipped beneath the edge of the world. This is a memory written in reflection. When the sun departs, the world does not forget how to catch its light. The snow becomes a mirror holding the last gold of dusk. Ice crystals suspended in the sky bend and scatter the faintest rays into arcs and halos, sundogs and pillars, glowing gently in the low blue twilight. Even in full darkness, these reflections linger, a reminder that the light is never truly gone, only transformed. This memory also lives in the atmosphere itself. Long after sunset, the high polar sky can glow with something called the afterglow, a gentle band of red or violet that curves along the horizon. It is not strong, it does not illuminate. But it lingers like breath on a window pane. In ancient times, people believed this light was a sign, a thread connecting the land to something greater, and perhaps they were right. Because what is light if not a thread? It binds molecules into motion. It tells cells when to divide. It tells seasons when to shift. It stirs migration, growth, dreaming. It pulls the face of a sunflower. It guides the wings of a moth. It stirs chloroplasts in leaves, wakes the tiniest blades of grass. But here in the Arctic, light does something more. It teaches patience. It shows how life can be shaped by memory, not only by presence. Even beneath the ice, light leaves its trace. Algae living on the underside of sea ice remember the rhythm of day and night, even when cloaked in months of darkness. Their growth slows, but it does not stop. In small pulses, they continue, stirred by the faintest glimmers, moonlight, aurora, a brief scattering of surface brightness through fractured flows. These pulses are signals, ancient and slow. The ocean responds, so do the creatures who feed within it. In this way, the memory of light becomes a language. Not one we hear, but one the earth speaks constantly, in color, in movement, in chemical change, in the way ice turns blue when compressed, in the way animals track the angle of sun even when it is below the horizon, in the way snow darkens slightly just before the first thaw, signaling to seeds below that warmth will come. And we, too, understand this language. Not through science alone, but through feeling. When we light candles in the depth of winter, when we gather near firelight, when we look out into the dark and imagine golden mornings to come, we are answering that call. We are leaning into the memory of brightness, into the rhythm of return. Our bodies remember it too. Human sleep patterns shift with the light. Our melatonin, our hormones, our moods, all bend gently toward the sun even in its absence. In the long dark we slow, our thoughts grow quieter, our steps more careful. It is not hibernation but something close, a turning inward, a resting of the senses, not emptiness but depth. And what lies in that depth is not silence but dreaming. Dreaming not of escape but of belonging, of being held in the turning of the earth, in the endless slow wheel of dark and light, of memory and becoming. In the Arctic, people dream in color during the long night, more vivid, more intricate. Some believe the mind, denied brightness, turns inward to create its own. Others say the dreams are shaped by the stars, by the aurora, by the quiet itself. Whatever the source, these dreams are gifts. They remind us that imagination, too, is light. That stories carry brightness through the longest nights, that even in deep shadow, wonder still flickers. That is why even in the coldest seasons, there are festivals of light. In the far north, people bring the sun back with fire, with lanterns, with shared breath. They sing, they gather, they hold hands in the dark, not to chase away the night, but to honor what it teaches. That light matters more when it is scarce, that we remember it more clearly when it is gone. Even the aurora, most brilliant in the heart of winter, feels like a kind of memory being played across the sky. Not from this world, but shaped by it, drawn by magnetism, by sun, by shadow. It dances not only with color, but with time. Some who have watched it say it feels like watching thought, like watching a sky that remembers. And perhaps the land remembers, too. The rocks beneath the snow have felt 10,000 winters. The soil, though frozen, has held seeds that waited years for light. The rivers, though silent, have carved their way back to the sun again and again. And still they return as the light returns, as we all do, through cycles, through seasons, through slow unfolding. The Arctic teaches this with every turn of its sky. That light is not something you lose, it is something you carry. In reflection, in memory, in the way a creature learns to find warmth in shadow, in the way a forest dreams under snow, in the way a heart keeps glowing even when the sky is dark. And so even now, as the polar night stretches long and deep, there is a knowing. That beneath the quiet, the light is waiting. And in everything it has touched, it still lives. Now let us return one last time to this land of quiet, where darkness holds the world like a lullaby, and every shadow is shaped by a light that once was. The memory of light is not something that fades in the Arctic, it is something that deepens, something that lingers in the bones of the land and the breath of the air, in the way snow glows under moonlight and the way silence becomes luminous with patience. In this final part of the night, just before the first golden edge appears again on the horizon, the memory of light becomes strongest. It is everywhere in everything, in the frost etched onto branches like silver lac, in the glint of eyes that reflect starlight, in the shimmer of ice crystals drifting through still air. These are not shadows cast by fear, but places where memory gathers, tender, ancient, waiting. To the people of the north, this is a sacred moment. They know that the sun will return, but they do not rush it. They walk in the snow, wrapped in fur and wool, their footsteps careful, their breath visible. They share stories by firelight, not only of past light, but of what light means. It is not just something to see by. It is something to believe in, something to remember with, something to carry, even when all around seems silent and dim. And this remembering is not limited to what the eyes have known. It is deeper than that. It is how the earth itself remembers the sun, how the curve of the horizon seems to lean toward the southeast, where the light will rise again, how animals begin to move differently, sensing the change in the quality of shadow in the feel of the air. Even before the sun is visible, its coming is felt. The snow begins to soften slightly on the surface during the warmest part of the day, not melted, but loosened. Trees seem to stretch. The air sharpens, then sweetens. There is no alarm, no signal, only this quiet shift, and those who are paying attention smile, knowing what it means. The return of light is not a surprise, it is a reunion. And when the first sunbeam crests the edge of the world, sometimes just for a moment, sometimes for a few brief degrees, it paints everything with color too rich for words. Gold spills across the snow. Shadows stretch long and soft. The world exhales. You can hear it in the stillness, in the way everything pauses to witness, the way even the wind seems to hold its breath. In this moment, the memory of light and the presence of light meet, and what was imagined becomes real, what was remembered becomes seen. But the lesson is not in the return alone, it is in what was carried through the dark. Because without darkness, we do not learn what light truly is. Not simply brightness, not simply warmth, but connection, reflection, hope, not hope in the future alone, but in the now, in the trust that even when we cannot see, the light still lives in the rhythm of things. And perhaps this is the deeper rhythm of the Arctic, the long night teaching the land how to wait, and the returning light teaching it how to dream again. The ice remembers. The rivers remember. The animals remember. And so do we. We remember the golden slant of afternoon sun on snow. We remember the pink and lavender skies of early spring. We remember the way the light once shimmered across the ice, or danced across a frozen lake, or caught in the eyelashes of someone we loved, sparkling like a promise. These memories live in us even when we cannot name them. They are part of our rhythm. They move quietly beneath the surface of our thoughts, like water beneath snow, like light behind clouds. And when we need them, they rise, they guide, they warm, they glow. So let the sun return in its time. Let the shadows fall away slowly. Let the world turn gently as it always has. We do not need to rush it. We have learned how to carry the light. We have learned how to keep it glowing in quiet ways, through touch, through kindness, through the stories we tell when the sky is dark. And now, as the light spreads further each day, we honor what the darkness gave us. It gave us a stillness. It gave us reflection. It gave us the quiet space in which memory could grow. And from that memory, the light returns not only to the world, but to us. We too rise with it. Not brightly, not suddenly, but with grace, with softness, with the understanding that light is not just something we witness, but something we become. And so the Arctic shifts once more. The snow begins to melt. The rivers begin to run. The animals stir from their deep dreaming. And the light that has always lived beneath the surface rises again, not as a stranger, but as something known, something remembered, something we never truly lost. Because in the heart of shadow, we learned how to carry it. Because in the silence of the night, we became light ourselves.